Hey friends, welcome to the Taste Toast Travel Podcast. We're your hosts and resident foodies, Epicureans, and lovers of all things travel and exploration.
I'm John, and I'm a certified som and a certified specialist of wine, and I've worked in the wine and hospitality industry for over 10 years.
I'm Tara, and I've worked in the wine industry for over 7 years, both in hospitality and digital marketing.
When my wife and I first met, we bonded over our love of eating, drinking, and traveling the world. That passion has only grown over time. Now we want to share this passion with you from an insider perspective.
On this podcast, you can expect a wide range of topics on all things food, travel, and beverage. This includes non-alcoholic drinks too, because we don't discriminate here. That means we'll dig into things like where to go, where to stay, and what to eat or drink along the way. We'll be serving tea on hot topics and big news, dig into the cultural significance and impacts that food, drink, and travel have on our lives, and we'll even bring on guests to join us who are just as excited, passionate, and knowledgeable about tasting, toasting, and traveling as we are. And because we're not your ordinary foodie and travel-focused podcast, you can definitely expect some pop culture topics here too.
We're only scratching the surface here, and we have a lot more in store that we can't wait to share with you all. Grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and enjoy the journey with us. Cheers.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Taste Toast Travel Podcast. I'm Tara.
And I'm John.
And today we are digging into a topic that John has received many questions about over the years and is something I have found people are often curious about. And for those of you who don't know, or you perhaps knew or heard somewhere and forgot, John is a certified sommelier, and he's often asked questions about how he became one, what that process was like, all the things. So we thought this would be the perfect opportunity and the perfect platform to have that conversation and talk about that and kind of peel back the curtain a little bit on how all of that works for those who are curious. So I thought a good place to start would be at least to get to know your story a little bit and why you decided to become a certified sommelier. Do you want to just give like super high level background on like how you got started in the wine industry? Because you had a very different degree than like bachelor's degree than what people might expect. So do you want to give just like a tiny bit of backstory there?
Yeah, I mean, went to college, graduated with a degree that has nothing to do with hospitality or wine.
Are you going to divulge what that was?
It was criminology.
I always find that fascinating.
You know, and it was, so, I mean, like, I don't know, very opposite of, wine in the hospitality industry. But I came home from college, my last final year, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll get a summer job at a winery and figure some stuff out. Got a job at a very big winery in Napa. And first day on the job, they're like, here's 6 bottles of wine, 23-year-old you. Try them. It's like, oh, that's neat.
And this was like 2014, 2015-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 6 bottles of free wine. Like good wine, too.
What is
this
gold?
Cheap wine, too. It was like nice wine. I was like, oh, okay.
This doesn't sound...
Proceeded to chug each one of those, and as 23-year-olds do. And then I kind of got into wine, like not like drinking it or anything like that. Obviously, that's part of it, but I got into it. I don't know. It's hard to explain the amount of knowledge or the amount of information that's available for wine, and it's just massive.
It's just like endless kind of.
Yeah, it's just so much, and like I just really enjoyed the amount of knowledge that there was about wine. And I always hated like going into a room and being the person. Like I always like going into a room and like I know like the most, or I'm the most knowledgeable about a certain topic. I like being that person. I hate going somewhere and I'm like, I have no clue what's happening and I'm lost. Like I hate that. So I really enjoy learning about certain things. Some things I latch onto, some things I'm like, I don't really care. But wine is one of those things where I really latched onto for some reason. Could have been growing up here. I don't know. Could have been I was 23 and I like alcohol. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was really
You're
like I
fine.
just for whatever reason latched onto it, and I'm really into history, like you probably know.
Yes,
Like
yes.
I'm a really big history person, and wine is so historical. And for me, that really like sparked an interest where I'm like, well,
Hmm.
this liquid in a glass, like people have been drinking it for thousands of years, and I mean, all it is alcohol and it's just fermented grape juice. But at the same time, it's like people sit down and they drink it and then they argue with each other about it. And it's like such a fascinating thing, like why this liquid is such a like a big deal to people.
I have a super quick sidebar question. Why not beer? Why not
I was into
mead?
beer for
Why
a
not?
while,
You
yeah.
actually, you almost went to
Yeah, I got
school for that,
accepted
didn't you?
to a brewmaster school in Canada. I was thinking about becoming a brewmaster and making beer. Um, but it was expensive, and at the time, like I had zero money to do
Yeah.
that, and I was like, no.
Dream's dead.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, I like wine, and I like that kind of side of the industry, and yeah, I live in
Yeah, I was gonna say
Napoli.
you're in like
Like
literally the best place,
it's so
the bestest
accessible to
places
me.
for
Might
it.
as well kind of like lean into that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did, and I kind of just like went from there. But uh, I also noticed, like, not to take away from anyone, but like a lot of the wineries and like the people I work with at wineries, they're not super knowledgeable about wine.
Yeah, you're probably as limited to what you expose yourself to and what you are educated on
Yeah,
based
I
on what
mean,
you're
I
I
was
mean, people can
working.
expand their horizons for sure. You could be in like a tasting group or something, or you can self-learn, I guess, in a way,
I
and
mean, there's you can like
but I mean,
learn as much as you can being in a winery,
yeah.
like, but there's limits to I think the amount of knowledge you can gain just like being in a winery amongst people that aren't super educated about
Or can
wine.
I just say there's some misinformation spread too. Like
Yeah.
I've been in jobs in the distant past where I had like a manager kind of feed me one what I thought was like a fact or something about a wine or variety, whatever it was.
Mm.
But then I would have someone else be like, "No, I don't know about that. This is what I believe it to be." And so it's just in the wine industry is interesting. It's like sometimes I think there's factual stuff and then there's people's opinions kind of interwoven into it, and then it's just biases
Well,
based on what
yeah,
people like
and
in
wine
general,
is
and
very
so it's
subjective
very
anyways.
subjective, yeah, so you
But
just kind of have to
the
weigh
other
your own
thing is
thoughts.
too is like where you work too. Like a
Yeah.
big winery, they'll hire you if you have a pulse. But like some other wineries, they're like, well,
All the respect to people who work at wineries that have a
we
pulse.
would like you to, have some type of wine education. But like, I mean, yeah, there's people that are like, oh, I'm retired and I work at a winery 3 days out of the week
Which
and
is
just
lovely, by the
pour
way.
wine, which is
Good
fine.
for
But
you, but
like, there's a difference between that and someone that's like
yeah.
educated in wine and stuff like that.
Honestly, I'm a perfect example of this because when I got into the wine industry, I'd never worked in it before. I worked for Gap for 8 years, and literally my manager at the time had said basically told me like, "I'm hiring you because I can teach you about wine. You can be taught wine.
Hmm.
You can't be like it's harder to teach hospitality and customer service and things like that. These other qualities that she was really looking for on her team. So that's really where I started to learn wine. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's just an example of like there's varying
yeah.
levels of
I've
requirements
had
for
professors tell me
knowledge,
that too. It's like, well, you can teach, you can learn wine.
which you can
Like
absolutely.
you can learn about wine. It's not like you can't do that. It's like, yeah. So like I had that one of my professors in my master's program was like, last thing you want to do is like when you're applying somewhere to talk up all your wine knowledge. It's like great, but like that can be taught.
You and everyone else, kind of.
You can
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah. I
taught about
mean,
wine,
sure.
but there's certain other skills that they're looking for, stuff
Yeah.
like that. But
So, in order to become a sommelier, because I think a lot of people, and some people listening to this podcast, you might be more educated on wine, the wine industry, what it takes to become a som. But for those who maybe don't know, and that's why you're listening to this conversation, or you're kind of just like you've heard bits and pieces, can you quickly explain what a sommelier even is? And then like the various levels as well? Because there's four, right? And then there's
Mhm.
what you need to do to become certified, but then there's two more
Yeah.
levels. And yeah, so can you just like explain kind of
So
that process?
you don't have so you don't have to do any certifications to be a sommelier. There's many great sommeliers in the world that don't have any certification. They've been in the industry their entire lives. They're fantastic sommeliers. Like
So would
fine.
that be like level one?
No, they're just not. They just never taken
Well,
any.
then, okay, so how could it be called a sommelier then?
Well, I mean, if your job title is sommelier, you're a sommelier.
That's kind of that's kind of weird and shady to me. Doesn't that kind of take away from those that got certified and took the time and the energy to do that?
I mean, not
I don't know,
necessarily.
Viper's
No,
that
not
wouldn't sit well with
necessarily. I
me.
mean, not necessarily. It's just some
Mm.
people value certification. Some people don't value certification. Some people just like don't see the merit in getting a certification. You know, this sommelier has been doing it for 30 years. They're like sharp as any other sommelier, and so they know what they're doing. It's just like they
Okay,
don't. They're not like I don't need to go to a 3-day testing to
right.
someone tell me I'm a sommelier. Like I already am.
That's really interesting. I never really knew that
No,
actually. Working in this industry, I genuinely thought in order to be called a sommelier or considered to be one,
I mean,
certified that you kind of had to
I
go
mean,
through
yeah.
it.
If your job title is sommelier and you go to a restaurant every day for work and you're like, I'm the sommelier, like
Hmm.
that's what you
You're a
are.
sommelier. Okay,
Yeah,
good to know.
yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay, well, if you let's say someone did want to go through the process to become certified,
sure.
what is that? There are four. Am I totally messing this up now? Are there
Yeah, it's like
four
you got
like levels
intro,
technically?
certified, advanced, and master.
Right.
Intro, you're not really a sommelier yet.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got like certified, advanced, and master.
So you were
Those are kind of like
certified.
the three levels. Yeah, I'm certified.
Mhm.
And so there's like a few thousand of me, my level in the world. Advanced, there's like 1,000
There's only a
maybe.
few thousand
I don't
certified.
know, 3,
Yeah, you
4,000,
might want to
something
look
like
that up
that
now, but yeah.
ish. Um,
Fact check.
advanced some,
Oh my god.
fewer for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And then master, there's I think right around 300 of them in the world since like 1976 ish.
Okay.
Those are all like ish numbers, but very small amount of master sommeliers that have ever been essentially.
Right.
It's the master sommelier exam is the hardest test in the world. Less than a 1% pass rate. People take it every year and nobody passes. Like it's a whole
It's the
thing.
whole thing. If you genuinely, if you guys are curious or haven't seen those documentaries, the Somm documentaries, they're very interesting, and there's multiple.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
3.
I recommend watching those. I mean, if you're curious to sort of see the process of what we're like elaborating on here, definitely recommend. It gives because what you did is certainly not to the level
No,
that of what they had to go
no, no,
through.
no.
But let's focus then on like let's say somebody is just curious of like okay, so to become certified, to go the extra mile to get the certification, what does that look like for you?
Um, so
And also, why did you choose to get the certification versus just like now I'm curious. Why did you bother kind of going through that versus just like studying and then like kind of
I like working towards something. I like having a
yeah.
goal set and, having a
That yeah, you are good about that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
like
that's true.
yeah, so like you have your testing date and you're like I need to be ready for, this testing date in the future. And I like setting goals and I like being able to be like,
Kind of
I have
okay.
this amount of time
Yeah.
to like get prepared for this exam. Stuff like so that's just like
Yeah.
my personal preference and I guess it gave me a little bit more of like a parameters on like I need to know this
Like
the
structure
yeah
a
and the
little more.
structure. I need to know this content.
Yeah.
It helps me to do stuff like that.
Speaking of really quick, and then we can get back to like the kind of differences in the levels, but like what are the main levels of content that you have to know? What are you tested on? Basically is the
Well,
question I'm trying to.
The different levels, starting with certified, advanced, and then master, leaving out intro. Intro is a very rudimentary wine quiz, I would say.
Okay.
It's like you go to this class and you talk about wine and, you know, the overview of wine and history about it all day. And then you take like a small quiz.
Did you have to do that to even get
Yeah,
into
you
the
have to do that to do the certified.
Okay, got it.
So I did that, but it was like I knew most everything. I knew everything.
Or like challenge, please.
I knew everything for the quiz prior to that. Like,
yeah.
I think being born and raised in Napa helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, working in the industry. And
but also I had already done some other, I did the CSW.
Because what's a CSW? I was going to say.
Certified Specialist of Wine.
Okay, really quick, what's that?
It's very wine focused, and it's all about geography, wines from certain regions, grapes in certain regions, light touches on like percentages of grapes in certain wines, stuff like that. It's pretty specific with some stuff, but it was a really great base to like get like a wine knowledge. And so I knew a ton of stuff moving from that into the intro. It was like, oh, this is very, very basic stuff. And then you move from that. It's basically like you go from your intro, which is like very rudimentary, and then you go to like certified, which is like, oh, this is like way more in depth. Like,
yeah,
I guess I would say intro is like middle school. Certified is
not to insult anyone here who's done intro.
Intro is like middle school level, like amount of competence. Certified is like college level. Advanced is like master's degree, and then master's
is like doctorate on steroids.
Yeah. So like there's a huge jump each time, like from intro to certified, massive jump. Certified to advanced, even bigger jump, and then advanced to master, like
not even
it's like night and day.
Like forget about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so certified wise, what was like the focus? What did that entail?
Certified is a 3-part test. It's mine was in San Francisco, and it was 3 parts. You get there really early in the morning, and you do a tasting, and then we did a theory, and then we did a service.
Right.
And so the tasting is very, for certified, it was a white wine and a red wine.
That's it?
Yeah, white wine, red wine, 2 wines.
That's all you're tested on?
For the tasting.
Huh.
Yeah, so you walk in the room, you have a table, or a seat, sit down, there's a white wine and a red wine in front of you, and you have to tell them what those wines are. So you have to do white wine, what it is, where it's from.
It was like 5. Oh my God, I could do this in my sleep.
Okay. White wine is, what it is, where it's from, year,
vintage,
describe the wine.
Okay.
Same thing for the red.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what yours were?
Just
out of curiosity. It was a long time ago. I don't expect you to remember.
What was the white wine?
Do you remember like country or anything?
I think the white wine, I think it was a Riesling from Mosel in Germany. And I think the red wine was a Syrah from Northern Rhone. Wow. But they never tell you.
Good. I hate that. You've told me that before.
Yeah,
I think that's
that's
so stupid.
No matter what, you can pass or fail, and either way, they never tell you what the wines actually were. Yeah.
Man, I'd be so curious. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so tastings first.
Yep, tastings first, 8 a.m. Ugh. White wine, red wine. Boom.
Entirely
get that out of the way. You get a break. Basically, you finish the tasting, and then everyone goes down to the bar at the hotel we were at, and everyone starts talking about what they thought the wines were.
Oh, okay. I thought
we had drinks too. Everyone's like, I need a shot. And so
it would. Where's my tequila?
Yeah, you get like everyone starts talking about the wines, what they thought it was. Like,
and everyone gets different wines, or
no, they're all the same.
Same.
They're all the same, but you go down there and you're like, I guess I thought it was a Riesling and a Syrah. And you get down there and someone's like, I thought it was a Chardonnay.
Oh my God, this is taking me back to high school, like math tests. Yeah, like, what'd you get on number 14? Right. I said 8. I said it was 32. What the?
Yeah, they're like, oh, I thought it was a Chardonnay, and I thought it was a Merlot, or I thought it was Sauv Blanc. Blanc and then a cab from Bordeaux, and it's like,
So
I'm
all that you just
whooped.
said about your wines, that's what you thought they were, but you actually don't know.
Correct, yeah.
Wow.
No clue.
That's funny.
All I know is I passed and some of the other people did.
All I know is I'm smart and they're dumb.
I passed and a lot of folks didn't.
That's
Um,
funny.
and
And you have to pass both?
you have to get enough. You have to. It's like
I mean,
a
that's 50-50
points.
shot.
It's points. You have to get enough points.
Oh, so they're testing. Okay.
So each wine is different amounts of points. Let's say both wines had 20 points. You had to get enough points between the wines
between the vintage, between
Yeah.
where it's from. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But each
Funny.
wine is kind of different, and the
Okay.
points change depending on which level you are. It's a whole thing. So you do the tasting.
Okay. So tastings. That's day one.
It's all one day.
Oh, what did you say 3 days?
The masters, the advanced and the masters are multiple.
Oh,
days.
Jesus. Okay, we'll get there.
But the certified was one day.
Oh, it's one day.
It was like 3 parts one day.
Okay.
So it was there most of the day.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting.
Second was the theory,
Mm-hmm.
which it was like 75 to 100 questions, and you have to get. I think it was 70 or 75% of it right, and it's all about wine, beer, spirits, cocktails.
Really, this is a great point. I think a lot of people
everyone always
thinks
assumes sommelier
it's just
is like
wine.
but
It's not.
everything.
That's what's really special about what you've done.
If you can drink, if you can have it as a drink at a table at a restaurant, like a sommelier has to know something about it. Like,
does that mean coffee and tea and stuff too?
Sure, coffee,
wow,
sake,
apple juice, orange juice. I mean,
water.
No way.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm today years old and I'm learning all this.
Stuff
wow.
like that. It used to be they used to have to know about like cigars and stuff, but they've kind of like not
loosened up on that.
Yeah, they've gone away a little bit from cigars.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's all about anything.
Yeah, I knew all the like alcohol ones and stuff like but that. Yeah, pairings for sure. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
So yeah, it's like a knowledge exam about all of that kind of stuff, and they ask you pretty obscure questions, and as you go up in levels, advanced and master, they're more and more obscure.
Like crazy,
it's like,
right?
No one would ever need to know these answers, but like it's a way of like weeding out
gauging
people.
It's
like, but like you never would ever need to know the minimum sugar level.
No, it's like literally so crazy.
Pinot Noir from Loire Valley and in wherever you're at. So it's like
that's funny,
but they expect you to know that. So
okay. So how did you do on the theory part?
I thought I did pretty good. They don't
freaking tell you.
No.
Oh my god, this is like the dumbest.
Didn't know, but I did well enough to pass, I guess.
That's funny. You're very good. I have to give you some well-deserved credit here. You're very good at. I feel you're very good at theory. You're good. You have a good memory. You're good at remembering things.
I'm really good at memorizing.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, but I think it helps too. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it helps too that you're actually genuinely interested in this stuff. Like, that is like the whole reason we have this podcast.
Like, how do you remember this, and this? Is like, well, if you really like it, it's not that hard to memorize.
No, I mean, because it's interesting. You intake that information, and it's you love Europe and different parts of the world, and like if you put it into that context, like it's probably easier to remember. Yeah. So, okay, so that's like middle of the day ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Middle of the day. I can't remember if we had lunch prior to that or we had lunch after that.
I would hope or before. My God, you need some food to get through that.
I can't remember the day, honestly. It's just a while ago.
I just blacked it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like 10 years ago now that we're talking about this. That you're.
Then after that, we had the service portion.
I'm excited to talk about this part.
So the service portion is basically you come into the ballroom where they're like holding the exam,
right?
And there's tables everywhere, like big round tables.
Yeah.
And there's like 1 or 2 master sommeliers at your table.
That's so intimidating.
And then there's like place cards at the other seats of the table, and it's like, girl.
So there's not actually people. It's like, okay,
it's their.
It's them.
Place
but it's
cards.
Not,
It's like,
okay, so
this is a girl, this is a boy, this is a girl, this is a boy, birthday girl, stuff like that.
Okay.
Guest of honor or something like that. And so, You have to know how to approach the table, how to walk around the table. You have to do sparkling wine service. You have to know producers of different sparkling wines. They ask you like, you know, what are some of the wines you have that you would recommend? Like a lot of like stuff like that.
Right.
And
Questions you might get at a legitimate
sure.
restaurant.
And then they're like, oh, I want this sparkling wine. Great. So you go get a bottle, and it was, some cheap bottle of wine, but
Okay.
you're pretending it's this bottle that they
It's
want.
like
Show them the bottle,
little Dom.
yeah, show them that, and then you have to open it correctly.
Let me show you this bottle of Corbel.
Yeah, exactly. And pour them the wine, and you have to know who to pour first. Go clockwise. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I think that's so interesting. So, for example, birthday girl that you just mentioned
Yeah,
as an
so you
example.
would
So, like,
you would see like the place cards. You would pour the guest of honor first.
if there is one, like, what if
Yeah.
there's not? What do you?
Then you would pour from the person that you're talking to. They're considered like the head of the table, I guess you would call them.
Okay.
And so you approach them from the right, and
Yeah.
then you would talk to them, show them the bottle, and then you would pour directly to the left of them,
Mm-hmm.
and then boy, girl, all the way around, and them last.
What happened to ladies first?
Did I say boy, girl?
You did.
Pardon. I meant to say ladies first, and then
It's funny. I was actually joking, but then I thought about it. I was like, wait a second. I thought I could have sworn it was
yeah.
women first.
I meant to say women first.
Women first.
And then the men.
Unless the head of the table you're talking to is a male.
You pour who you're talking to.
Doesn't matter what it is.
You pour them last, no matter what.
What if you taste, like, they would taste it first or something?
Yeah, they would taste it. You pour them a little bit, they taste it, yum, and then you would go to their left, and you would start,
and then go, and then
you
women
would finish with them.
Okay,
the person they tasted. Yeah,
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense, because even like restaurants we go to, they'll do that, and you don't have to do like a super fancy restaurant. They just typically do it that way. Yeah. Okay.
And then you have to pour the amount of wine, like appropriate amount in each glass.
What if you totally just like over or undershoot it?
The hard part was like,
the
hard part's like, you don't want the foam, you don't want to pour too much of the foam like come up over the top.
Oh yeah, sparkling's hard too. Wait, talk about opening a bottle of sparkling.
Yeah, so you open the bottle, it has to be really silent, like no noise coming out. I guess if the bottle pops, it's like an automatic fail.
That's
and like I'm like sitting there opening my bottle of wine, like.
And are you talking to them at the same time? Like,
they'll
they're
trip
you up, try and do that.
As you're like opening the bottle,
So
like taking the cork out really slowly and trying not to make any noise. And they're asking you questions about the menu and blah blah blah. Meanwhile, in the background, you hear all kinds of people's bottles popping, right? And you're just like every time you hear a pop, you're like, oh fit, oh fit, oh fit, oh fit.
This reminds me of freaking. So you're gonna laugh at me. Can you read my mind? What am I thinking of?
I have no clue.
Squid Games.
Never would I have.
Because it reminds me of the scene where they're like working on those little like cake things. You know how they start like licking, they're like trying to get
shots.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly the same.
Went somewhere really dark. Sorry guys, but that's what it reminds me of. You're just like in the zone, and then behind you, you're just hearing like chaos. Anyway, wow, I just went off the rails there. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, that's wild. Okay, so anything else interesting on that? I was going to ask you how you did on that one, how you think you did, but was there anything else that's kind of obscure and interesting about that?
I think I did really well on the service portion.
Really?
Yeah.
You're very like cool under pressure. This is just like praising John Day for me apparently, but you're very cool under pressure. So I would imagine, unless you really just like got in your head, I feel like you would have done pretty well.
I was very like over prepared for it too.
Really?
That whole exam. Yeah, I mean, I was over prepared. I was like, studying and.
Okay, well, actually, hold on. I want to get to that and like the whole studying. We don't have to go like too much in depth, but I want to talk about the whole studying for all of this. There was one more thing I was going to ask about true or false. The service portion is where maybe not most people, but where a lot of people end up failing.
Yeah, I mean, service is really difficult if you don't do it all the time.
Mm-hmm. And would you say service is the most difficult part of the exam for most people? from your
No,
observation? Oh,
it
really?
depends.
Just depends on what you're good at,
If
essentially.
you're a floor som and you're doing this every single day, it's like,
Like, not
oh,
even
this
a
is a
thing.
breeze, walk in the park. It's like, muscle memory. I don't even have to think. I'm just doing this,
Mm,
right? But for people that don't do it all the time, yeah, it's difficult.
yeah. Okay, so all right, so let's get into so kind of start wrapping this up with like the studying aspect of this. How well, I have a couple questions. How first let's because we're talking about service. How did you study for that? How did you practice that? Because you've never worked in a restaurant.
Right. Well, I had a tasting group.
Right.
Um,
At somewhere you used where we both used to work. Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
I had a tasting group. We would get there at, every
Yeah.
Thursday morning, 8 a.m. It was mostly a tasting group. So we were there tasting 3 white wines, 3 red wines, blind tasting. There was like 10 of us. And
So
we would
fun.
just go through it every single Thursday morning before work.
Yep.
And then as the exam came closer, we would do like service for each other, and like we practiced.
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah,
I knew
we
you guys
practiced.
tasted,
Yeah, we
but oh,
practiced
that's cool.
service.
Nice. So you just would
So
take turns,
mhm,
whatever.
mhm,
Cool.
mhm,
Yeah. So that's really like your only practice though. That's only 1 day a week. That's not
mhm.
still not a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting. So then, okay, so then you got to know wines better that way, I would imagine. Was there
Mhm.
any other way that you were tasting wines and expanding your palate,
I mean, I
if you
was
will?
constantly buying wine and drinking it and tasting it, and
Okay.
like, I mean, yeah, I would buy a bottle of what is this wine, and I would buy it, drink it, and be like, oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Um,
So kind
I
of
had
self
books, and
self-taught a
yeah,
lot in a way.
I would read a book or read a chapter in a book about a wine. I'm like, oh, cool. I guess I'll go buy this. And so I'd go out, look for that wine, buy it, drink it. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And
Okay.
like,
So you kind of put a face to the name a little bit.
yeah, and
Yeah,
like
I'm
I
sure
just
that
kept
helped.
doing that over and over and over, and I was tasting all kinds of different wines, and
That's so fun.
um, yeah, it was cool.
So then Siri portion, how that to me sounds like the
Lot of
most mind-numbing
very
part.
dry books.
Yeah,
Some of them were cool. Some of them were like, this is
this is
so
mind-numbing.
dry. Like the World Atlas of Wine,
Ugh.
so dry.
No offense to that book or anything, but
Just literally like full of topographic maps
yeah.
of like
I
obscure regions, and you're like,
that's
oh my
interesting when
god.
you can study it at your leisure, but if you are really studying for a pretty important test, like I bet that's just harder. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a lot. Like that was very dry. I made a lot of flashcards,
You're a flashcard guy.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of
Oh
flashcards,
my gosh.
hundreds. I mean, I had a stack of flashcards. I mean, there had to be close to 1,000
Oh
flashcards,
my
like no problem. I could just go
god. That's
through them.
crazy.
I had them like kind of broken up, like French flashcards, Italian flashcards,
Oh, you're
Spanish
funny.
flashcards, and so I would just
Just
go,
like freaking every country essentially.
yeah, all the big ones for sure.
Was it mostly wine or like how much did you focus on beer and
Yeah,
everything
and then I
else?
had beer
Like,
flashcards, and I had sake flashcards
oh my
and stuff like
god.
that. Yeah, yeah.
How much of the test was focused on beer and sake and
Oh,
everything else? Like,
not a lot.
that's what I was wondering. I was like, I feel like it's
Three,
so
four questions
well,
on
it's so much about
beer, three, four questions
wine
on
that
sake.
no wonder people think it's mostly wine.
It's very
I mean,
wine focused,
yeah,
but
yeah.
if you can get those 3 or 4 questions on each one of those, like it's easy three or
You're
four questions.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So how long from when you decided like, yep, I'm getting
Want to be a som?
yeah, to taking the test? How long were you studying for?
Maybe like a year, year and a half. There was like a solid year where I did nothing. Like there's a solid year where
No social life.
I like stayed home and just
Oh my god.
tried wine and studied and did flashcards. Like all my friends were out,
What a
like,
riveting
yeah,
early 20s you
all
had.
my friends were like in a bar, and I was like at home drinking by myself,
Oh,
learning.
sweetie. Hey, you could have gone to the bar and drunk there and learned.
No, I was like studying, reading, watching documentaries,
Mm.
all that kind of
Do
stuff.
you remember what kind of documentaries? Were they like history documentaries? Like what were you watching that
Yeah, I mean all kinds of
just
documentaries on wine,
yeah,
like all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So really quick, what is you said there was like a big jump between like certified to advanced to masters. Like, what would you say high level is like the biggest? Like, what makes them so much different or so much harder? Just, well, you kind of alluded to the masters earlier as far as like the theory stuff, more obscure, more
Yeah.
just like in depth, I would imagine. Is
Yeah.
it just the more in
So,
depth, or like
well,
you also have to try a lot more wines
the
during the test,
advanced
right?
the advanced exam,
Yeah.
you go from you go to more wines. Now you have to do 3 white wines, 3 red wines for the tasting.
What's masters?
3 and 3.
Oh,
And but from
huh.
certified to advanced, there's more grape varietals that you need to know.
Are you told what you need to know prior to the
No,
test, or you just have to
no,
study?
there's nothing they tell you like know this. You're just flying blind and hoping for the best.
Who came up with all this
Men,
shit?
men,
Men.
yeah. They're just hoping, or you're just
This
hoping you
is
studied the right thing.
asinine to
Yeah,
me.
that was one of the worst things
Oh
about it
my
is
god, this is so
you're
funny.
sitting there and you're like, I hope I studied the right thing because there's no guardrails. There's no one telling you
I
like you
mean,
need to know
that's
this.
annoyingly clever, and I see why they do that, but damn it, that's annoying.
That's one of the hardest
Oh,
parts. Like I hope I focused on the
the
right
right parts.
stuff because you just don't know.
No pressure.
Um,
Wow.
and so the other big thing from going certified to advanced
Mhm.
is like the breadth of knowledge you need to have.
Okay.
It's like, and it's certified the net that you have to have, like the amount of knowledge, let's say, if you're like trying to like put it in like a size, it's like it has to be like this big, right? This is the amount of knowledge you need to have.
So this is like softball
You need to
size
do
for those of
this.
us who aren't
For
watching.
advanced, it's like that.
Large beach ball.
And then for like a master,
It's
it's
like
like
exercise ball
the
size.
size of this room. Like it's exponentially more and more difficult every
Wow.
time. It's like, you know how they tell you like a an earthquake is like 6 to a 7 is like a huge difference. It's like a
Yeah.
thousand
Okay.
times
Oh,
bigger.
okay. Yeah, I get what you're
That's
saying.
kind of like what it is.
Mm,
It's just such a huge jump, and the amount of
wow.
things they expect you to know is ridiculous. And what the funny part is too is like the original sommeliers, the masters,
Oh, I hate this. I know where you're going with
they
this.
had like 2 wine books
Yeah.
that they had to know
Yeah.
because that's all they had.
Right.
And now we have the internet, and the amount of knowledge that you can
And they just expect you to.
is infinite. And so they're like, well, you need to know more now. It's like, well, like master sommeliers back then are like, oh, I could never do it now. Like it's ridiculous. It's like,
Interesting.
oh, great, cool, yeah.
Would you say the service portion
Service,
changes that much
yeah,
between
service is definitely harder as you
really?
go up. Yeah, advanced and master for sure harder. There's like advanced and masters. I think that um the table is full. There's like all people, like
Mm.
all masters are sitting at the table,
That's,
and they're messing with you the whole
oh
time, trying to
my
like trip you
god.
up. You have to do a sparkling service. You have to do dessert wine or port service. You have to do all kinds of stuff.
I would pay
Um,
to see you do that.
and
Oh, that'd
so,
be so fun.
yeah, it's really, really like nerve wracking
Yeah.
in advanced, and then masters. Like
That's
I've
just
heard stories of like people that have taken it that like they've really messed with them
really.
just to see how they react under pressure.
Yeah.
Like I heard a story some one time, one of my friends that has taken the master exam said that like they put, you know, plastic on the bottle, so when you tried to pour it, it like spilled out everywhere and made a mess, and they wanted to see how you reacted to it. Stuff like that.
Oh my god, what is the fraternity?
Kind of seems like
Grow
it, yeah.
up. Oh my god. Okay.
Stuff like that. But like
Jesus.
they just want to see
That's
how you
how
react
you
to that sort of
how do
situation.
they expect you to react to that? Just cool, calm, collected, just
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
what do you say? Like, I'm so
yeah,
sorry. Let me get something to clean this up right now.
yeah. Stuff like that. Sure.
Just not.
Spill wine on someone, like, oh, sir, we'll dry clean your suit.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was like,
it's
let
you
me.
know it's completely complimentary on
Yeah, yeah.
the restaurant.
Just not even.
Stuff like that.
Can't
They just
even.
want you to be like cool about it.
Yeah.
Like the last thing that you should do is like freak out,
Yeah, you can't.
and like that's like a red flag,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then the theory is oral at that point, so you have a panel just
That's
bombarding you with
horrifying to me.
questions. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do very well.
No.
I think that's probably the thing I would be the worst at, honestly. Actually, I'm not amazing at tasting either. I'm not good at identifying like what it is I'm tasting. That's why I always look to you. I'm just like,
It takes a
it's like
while.
on the tip of my tongue to like name it.
Yeah. Which
I
is
don't
super
know.
common. People always ask me, like I tell them I'm like a certified sommelier, and they're like, "Oh, you must be like an amazing like a
Like this
taster,
great
and you have like
palate.
a you're a super taster." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, you just learn how to do it." I always say it's like
I think you do have a pretty good palate, but yeah, I mean,
my palate is no better than anyone else's. I've just learned and
and just done
exercised
it
the
enough.
muscle.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
It's like I tell people, you weren't born a great shoemaker. You learned how to make shoes.
That's interesting
It's
analogy.
like it's a very artisanal thing to make like
Sure,
make a
yeah.
very nice leather
I see where
bearing
you're going with
shoe.
that.
You're not born with
Practice.
that knowledge of making a leather shoe. It's just like you learn how to do it. It's a
Practice.
skill.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with being a sommelier. It's a skill. The tasting portion is just a skill, and you learn how to do it over and over and over.
Right.
Um,
I feel like the more you expand your palate, the more the more you taste.
I
It's
also
really no
say,
different than
yeah, I
food.
also tell people the more you drink, the more you learn. So
Mhm.
you have to taste things, you have to experience things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't learn. If you keep drinking the same 3 wines in your life,
Right.
your world is very small.
Yeah.
But if you expand and you start tasting all kinds of different stuff, you have to be willing to waste $30 if you don't like it. Most of the
Yeah.
time, you're gonna like the wine or be able to be
Or
like,
it's
yeah,
at
it's
least meh about
drinkable.
it. It's yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've only met like one wine in my life, kind of wine, where I'm like,
I actually
I don't
cannot
like this
continue.
wine. Yeah, I don't like this. And but most like every other wine in the world, I'm like, yeah, I'll drink it. It's like it's
I'll at
fine.
least finish the bottle. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
gonna,
fine.
write home about it, but
You're not gonna like most likely taste a wine and be like, oh, this is terrible. I can't drink
right,
this.
right.
No.
Yeah. So interesting. I was gonna ask one more thing about the advanced. I can't remember now. But one of my last questions I was going to ask you, because for those who are listening who have made it this far, might be wondering, John, why haven't you gotten your advanced some? Why aren't you kind of continuing that
Well, yeah.
education? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I was studying for it, and I was kind of like getting into it. And then they came out with some regulations, I suppose you could say,
Hmm.
where to be able to be accepted to taking the advanced sommelier exam, you have to have either be working or worked at a restaurant for 3 years.
It was 3 years.
Yeah, it's 3 years.
Yeah.
And
Which, as I said earlier, he hasn't.
I've never worked for a restaurant. Don't want to work for a restaurant. It's not my thing.
No, you've just never been excited about like the hours and stuff like that. And I think too, I don't know. I mean, maybe if you were single at the time or whatever, it'd be different. I still don't think
I no,
you would have wanted
no.
to. But I mean, at the time that that happened, I'm trying to remember exactly what year that was, but I remember us having that conversation. I mean, and you were definitely bummed about it. I mean, I just think it's like kind of a
Yeah, it was
it
pretty.
makes sense, but
It
it
bummed me
doesn't.
out for
It
sure. I
just
was like,
because it
this
just
was like my drive. I was like,
immediately
this is
took
my
you out of the
goal to do
running.
this, and it's like they just said, well, you can't do it unless you work at a restaurant. It's like, well, I don't want to work at a restaurant.
Yeah. You just didn't play.
Which
It's
is
just tough
the shitty
hours. It's
part
just
about it
yeah, it's
is
not for
master
everyone.
sommeliers.
Didn't have to do
No master sommelier works at a restaurant.
no, okay. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to kind of like finish this up with is like
Nobody,
I
no,
do find it interesting that like even a lot of advanced, but I would say master, none of them
we call it in the
are
industry
like
work the floor. There's not
yeah.
a master sommelier walking around the floor at a restaurant.
I mean, I guess we
Like,
should probably fact check that, but
no,
I would imagine
they
there's
don't do that.
not.
Their time is
A lot
better
of them
spent.
probably have well,
Their
what do they do probably? They probably have
their
their own
time is better
companies
spent elsewhere.
and like, doing their own
They
thing.
are making the wine list for that restaurant.
Mm,
They're not walking the
that's
floor.
elite.
They're not walking the floor telling people what wine they should have with
Yeah.
their pasta. That's
Mm,
not what a master sommelier is doing.
yeah.
So it's kind of funny that
That's like a
they
requirement where
require
it's
you to
like,
work the floor, but it's like master sommeliers do not work the floor.
yeah. I do get the rationale. I get the why behind it. I do.
I
It
understand it
just
too.
bums me out because there's very talented, very skilled, very smart people like you that, cannot, will not, have not worked in a restaurant.
Yeah, just
And that's just
don't want to work
immediately,
those hours. It's terrible.
yeah, it's a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Interesting.
if it wasn't for that, I would have probably kept on trying to do it for sure.
Yeah. Would you have gone to trying to do masters as well
Yeah,
if you could have passed
if
advanced?
that was yeah, if that was an option, sure. That
Mm.
was the original plan.
Really?
Yeah.
From like day one, you were
Mhm.
just like, I want to be a master som?
Mhm.
I don't know if I knew that.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, if any, what's the Court of Sommeliers are hearing this? Please take away that rule. Anything else you want to touch on with it? This is very, I even like learned some things about you, but also just like the whole process. Anything else you want to touch on, or
Mm,
any other like fun facts or things we didn't touch on? I feel like we gave a pretty good, well-rounded picture of what it would take to at least become certified.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely um, challenging.
Time consuming, obviously.
Yeah, definitely challenging, time consuming. I guess I would say like people in the industry, like sommeliers around, like they're because of those movies, the Somm movies. It was like the cool thing to do to
Yeah.
just become a sommelier.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that like master sommeliers and people in the industry don't really like when you're a lawyer and you're like, I want to be a sommelier to impress my friends, right?
I've never heard that. What?
And so they'll like become a sommelier like
Wait,
on the
really?
side so they can impress everyone when they go out to dinner and all that kind of
Ew,
stuff.
that's a bummer.
Yeah,
Like,
stuff like
it's like
that.
really?
I've talked to people, where
I've
at
never
work
heard that. That's
where like
interesting.
guests are like, "Oh yeah, I'm a sommelier," and it's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm like a IT manager." Are you sommelier?
And they're certified, or they're calling themselves a som.
Most of the time, they're intro level and they call themselves a sommelier.
I take such an issue with this. That's my takeaway today.
It's whatever. People are trying to feel good about themselves. I don't
Okay.
care, but
Well, as long as you don't.
it's whatever. Uh, but yeah.
Well, clearly, moral of the story, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and a lot of love for you know, for what you're learning. But also great, I think, for people to know and to clarify for those who maybe didn't know that it really is beyond wine.
Yeah,
It goes a
it's a
lot.
lot more in depth than that.
Yeah. But I think, hopefully that the whole point of this conversation was not for people to respect you more, but hopefully people do have more respect for those that are certified or masters or advanced and just understand the level of, you know, work and I don't memorization and just, research, all of it that
Hmm.
goes into that. It
Hmm.
is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. But if you're super interested in it and you really enjoy it, it's really
Yeah,
fun.
would you recommend it if
Very fun.
someone's like looking at doing
Yeah,
it?
it's very fun. It's a whole different side of like the world that like
Yeah.
you may not be aware of. Wine, food.
Hmm.
It's a fun industry.
Would you say it's like, because the whole point of this podcast, is the exploration and adventure and all of this idea and really leaning into that? And would you say it's really like expanded
Yeah,
your
yeah,
palate, your mind,
yeah.
your all of that?
It's really interesting. Um, the wine and food kind of industry um, really allows you to have experiences that you might not have
Oh
ever
yeah,
had
yeah.
opportunities for, whether it's like really crazy rare wines,
Hmm.
really amazing, wine and food like experiences,
Yeah,
stuff like that, French Laundry or
yeah.
one of
You
these
got to do
3-star
that.
Michelin restaurant experience that are like bucket list for people.
Right.
Um, you
So
know,
true.
we drink because I'm in the wine industry. We're both in the wine industry, but
You
because we're in the
you
wine
you get
industry,
access to some other stuff that I
we
don't.
drink $100 bottles of wine on a Monday like it's
Yeah.
not a thing because we just get it for
We
free.
don't say that to be bougie or obnoxious and annoying. I
It's
swear, it's
I
just it
I
is what it is.
definitely um I definitely like uh, don't take that for granted,
Yeah,
right?
you've worked hard to get those
I,
$100 bottles
I know
for free sometimes.
what I have and I know what I'm drinking and it's like,
Yeah,
I understand
we
that
appreciate it.
people like I talk to people all the time like, "Oh, Like, we only have these wines on like the specialist of
Yeah.
occasions, and it's like, ah, shit, I cook with that wine, stuff like that.
You sound like such a pretentious asshole.
I know, but yeah,
Oh
that's
my
part of
god.
being in the wine industry is like you have access to like things that
Some
most people don't have access
some
to.
cool stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, you've been in this for over 10 years. I've been in for like 7 or 8, whatever. Yeah, you kind of find your people and your ins, and you can get your hands on
Yeah, and
some cool stuff. Yeah.
once you're in the industry, it's like
But
you can get anything
it's
you
hard
want
work.
for pretty reasonable, whether it's free or half price or like, yeah.
So if you're considering getting into the wine industry, here's your sign.
Yeah,
It
if you
is
like
fun.
to eat and drink, like the wine industry
This
will
is
fill you up for sure.
Yeah, that's why we created this podcast, because
We'll
those
get
are
paid a
two of
lot,
the things that
but you get
we
paid a lot in wine and food.
and experiences and life-changing bottles of wine. And
Yeah, I mean,
no, it really, I mean, experience, all jokes aside, like truly, it's, I mean, whether you get into this industry or not, I think it's just, again, this is just such the heart of this podcast is like,
the people in the industry are
le-
fun too. Like,
yeah, yeah. It's just appreciate it's having, being grateful for that kind of stuff, and really
yeah, I
just like
mean,
loving the experience of it all, and how it does open you up.
it's hard to explain it, but like everyone in the industry is really interested and
Yeah,
has fun with wine and food. So if you're
yeah,
really interested in wine and food, like you'll love everyone you work with because everyone is like talks about wine and food.
yeah.
Like I don't think that when you go to, the office at a law firm, you don't tell to people about what you made for dinner that last night plus what you drank with that dinner. Like
Probably true.
that's a common conversation at work where I work.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, what did you make for dinner last night? Oh, cool. How did you make that? Oh, what did you drink with it? Like shit like that. Like all kinds of stuff.
yeah,
So if that's
that's
something
true.
you're into, it's really fun.
And even I guess I'll just end on this note. Even if you don't work in the wine industry or whatever, you don't have to like even live there to work in the wine industry, really. But finding like a tasting group like you had, or just
Hmm.
finding those like-minded individuals. It's like, again, why we have this podcast. We love sharing this stuff with people who love this stuff as much as we do and have an appreciation for it. It's great. It's fun. Well, thank you for enlightening all of us, myself
Sure.
included. This was a fun conversation. We were looking forward to this one. If you guys have any questions about any of this, DMs are open. You can email us hello@tastetoasttravel.com. I'm volunteering him. He's more than happy to answer questions
Oh
about
yeah.
any of this. Loves talking about it, obviously. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully it was educational and or just, enlightening, if nothing else. All right, you guys. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Taste Toast Travel. We will see you next week.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us and tuning into the Taste Toast Travel podcast. We really appreciate you being here and hope you're enjoying these honest conversations about all things sipping, savoring, and seeing the world. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, we would truly appreciate a rating or review on whatever platform you're tuning in on, so fellow foodies, Epicureans, and travel enthusiasts can enjoy this content too. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a follow at Taste Toast Travel. We'll see you in the next episode.